Howdy, folks. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn. And today, for you folks, I have a brand new video. The video today is going to focus on tabletop role playing games. And primarily, what I'm going to be discussing is tips for players. Now, with that being said, most of my content is more focused towards game masters, world creators, etc. So I thought it'd be a good time to put out a video directly directed towards players, as we all start once upon a time with our tabletop role playing game experiences as a player more than a game master. Now, with that being said, I feel these tips are going to be useful for both new and veteran players. Maybe more leaning towards new players than veteran players, but hey, even veteran players from time to time kind of forgets little things that they can do that can actually enhance their tabletop role playing experience. Now, with that being said, before I dig into the meat and potatoes of today's video, I want to discuss how any type of support for the channel is greatly appreciated. Anything from along the lines of sharing my videos, liking, commenting, subscribing helps me out. Also, I do have a Patreon page. The link is down below in the video description. If you want to take some time, check out my Patreon page. But now, moving on, and let's start with the first tip of today's video, and that is show up early. If you can afford to, show up 10, 15, even up to a half an hour early. That gives you time to kind of talk to the other players, get you acquainted with the other players, gives you time to talk to the game master, maybe ask him questions about the setting, about the rules, etc. I feel this is actually, at its core, very important, is being able to show up early if you can. Now, of course, maybe not everybody has a schedule that they can show up early, but if you can, I really recommend that you show up at least a few minutes early so you can, like I said, situate things, prepare yourself, get your books out, get your dice ready, things of that nature. Um, a lot of us does have a finite amount of time when it comes to gaming, when it comes to preparing, because we have family lives, we have jobs, etc. So being early is always a good thing if possible. Now, another one, and this is definitely directed even towards some of the more veteran players, is listen. Listen to what the other players are doing, listen to how they're discussing things, interacting with the world, listen to the game master. Any little detail that you can pick up, that you can glean, is beneficial for the campaign itself. It's beneficial for you as the player. And with that being said, you can just learn basic social skills. I'm actually having a more, with some of the newer, younger generation of players, I'm finding that their social skill levels isn't necessarily as good as with older, more veteran, seasoned players. And that's no fault against them. It's just times have changed and people communicate less by talking than they used to, especially face to face conversations. So, with that being said, listening to other players, listen to how they communicate is a good way to go. It's a good way to maybe learn some social skills, glean some things, learn about the world, etc. Know the basics of the rules, or at least learn the basic rules. You don't really need to know every single thing. You don't need to know how a barbarian's rage works if you're not playing a barbarian, but having a baseline understanding of how skills work, how skill checks are done, uh, how combat's done, etc., is always very good. And understanding your character's basics in itself. So if you're playing a wizard, having an understanding of how your spells work, your spell limitations, your slots, different things of that nature is always good to understand. And the better that you understand the basics, the less of a burden you are on the game master as well as the rest of the party. Because if you're constantly asking for a ruling every time it's your turn, you actually slow down the overall game experience. But with that being said, don't be afraid to ask things. And this one's also directed more towards some of the veteran players I've played with as well. So, yeah, everyone should try to understand the basic rules of the game. Also, this plays into showing up early because if you have a question about one of the basic rules, that's a good time to ask the game master as to get a better understanding of the rules. The next thing, and this one even I'm guilty of, and that's take notes. I am not the best note taker myself. I have been playing TTRPGs for over 20 years, and I'm still poor at taking notes. Luckily, I do have people within my group that are great at taking notes. But take notes, people's names, locations, um, different things of that nature. It's always good to have notes. You got pencil and paper. Use it, folks. That's all I got to say about taking notes. Be better at taking notes, folks. The next one I would say is understanding the setting, understanding the essentially the culture of the setting, the political aspects of the setting. You know, just understand the world setting itself. Have once again, it kind of goes back to rule basics, but this is kind of more of along the lines of the setting. The better you understand the setting, the better you understand what you're doing. If you're doing an Old West TTRPG set in Arizona, then try to have a pretty good idea of what it was like in the Old West of Arizona during the time frame you're playing. And I would also argue if you understand the setting itself, the basics of the setting, it gives you a more fulfilling experience and it makes it easier for you to understand and comprehend what is going on around you and why. But that's not necessarily something I would say that's super important. I would just say it's something that is helpful. The next one I would say to people is don't sweat dice. I've seen people sweat over dice so much, and there's no reason to. It's good to have your own dice. Don't get me wrong. Don't be concerned about it. People, especially for this one's directed mostly towards new players over veteran players, but even veteran players kind of get their underwear in a bunch about having their specific dice. Everybody is going to have at least one loaner set of dice, at least all your veteran players. Your game master is probably going to have multiple sets of loaner dice to lend people if necessary. So if you're a brand new player, don't sweat the dice. Don't worry about not having dice. You can get dice later, and even probably your game master can even recommend a good place to get dice when you're ready to get dice. And when it comes to the veteran players, don't sweat your dice because if you forget them, more than likely someone will have a set of loaner dice to get you through the night. I know they're not your dice. I know they're not as holy as your dice, but they're still dice. Don't sweat it. And then finally, the last thing I want to bring up is don't be so damn serious. Some people take the game way too seriously, folks. It's just a game. Like I said, I've been playing TTRPGs for over 20 years, and I've seen all kinds of ridiculousness when it comes to players just being a bunch of super serious. Well, I got some choice words, but seriously, don't be so serious. It's more fun, actually, when you're not serious because you and the other players can sit there, laugh, and enjoy the game even more. And just learn the keynotes of when it is a good time to be serious about the TTRPG. But more often than not, cracking a joke or making some wisecracks or whatever, people laugh and enjoy. Even making some stupid decisions can be absolutely hilarious and actually rewarding when it comes to the game experience itself, at least the overall experience. And that's a good thing because it makes players come back wanting more. But anyway, folks, I'm going to wrap up today's video at that. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Thank you very much for tuning in and have yourself a wonderful day.